France, the home of la croissant, and eating a 5-course meal amidst petrol bombs being thrown at you. And of course you have DS, I mean Monsieur Macron has one, alongside his armoured plated Peugeot 5008. How chic is that? The issue DS has with their cars though, is that luxurious cars from a sub-brand not exactly famed for reliability is quite a niche market. Some niche markets, such as the laptop, really did catch on, but some, in the case of purple and green ketchup, really didn't. So where does the DS fit in, and where does it have to go in the future? To make my comprehensive judgment on whether DS does have a future in the cars of the future, I'm going to look at their lineup. They've got 4 cars, which should be easier than Mercedes-Benz, which has 34 when you look on their configurator. So let's get going. The most affordable way to get into the brand is through the DS3, and I think the core idea of this car is great. I mean, how many other small SUVs do you know with massaging seats? Exactly, none. It's in a class of its own, and again, quite a niche car. And the interior really is wonderful. It's a step above the rest in the class, and the infotainment system isn't necessarily style over substance. Don't expect the interior to match your expectations though, as all the materials are likely to be derived from other Stellantis group cars. But the exterior styling is all very nice, with the exception of the rear back doors, which have this really weird like kink in them, which I don't really understand the need for. I'm sure Citroen could have gone away with it, or not Citroen, DS, I'm getting confused with the 2 brands. DS could have got away with that and just made a simple plain door. The driving experience really is quite subpar though. The only thing it has going for it is quite a good low speed ride, but when you get to higher speeds, it gets quite a bit worse. In the corners, it leans like the Eiffel Tower on a unicycle. Oh, that was quite scary. The camera almost fell off. As I was saying, the handling is not great, and the gearbox is pretty awful as well. It's really hesitant, a bit like the French upping their retirement age. It's just taking forever. But I think there's enough backlash for the French for one day. If I were you, I'd go for a high-spec Rivoli, I think it's called, or Opera trim with the more powerful, peppy engine. It makes sense in this format because it's like in a class of its own. If you go for a lower spec one, you could get an Audi Q2 with similar-ish equipment. But I think this, despite being a flawed car, would make sense around town as like a luxury town cruiser. So how does the DS4 stack up? Fortunately, this is a lot better. The exterior design is faultless, and I think DS has hit the nail on the head with this. On the inside, it's much of the same story. Plus, it's far plusher than the DS3 and isolates you in more of a cockpit than the DS3. To drive, I reckon the plug-in hybrid is the best one, as it's a car already set up for comfort. The extra 200 kilograms doesn't really make any difference because it's not exactly a great handling car. This E-Tense plug-in hybrid is also quite punchy and also very responsive when mated to a much better automatic gearbox than the DS3. Honestly, people can slate the handling of this car, but the majority of you are just going to want a comfortable cruiser, which this car excels at, as I've already said. And I think you should just look no further than the DS4. It's noticeably more practical than the DS3, even if the rear headroom and rear space in general is not very good. It's a similar conclusion to the DS3. I'd recommend going for a top spec Opera trim, even if it is north of £45,000. And you should also match this to the plug-in hybrid powertrain. This is because you'll get all the good equipment such as a head-up display, wireless charging, massaging seats, active scanning suspension, a 360-degree camera and matrix LED headlights. Think of this more as a budget S-Class than an expensive A-Class. Rather than going in depth about the DS7, I'm just going to summarise by saying it does a lot of what the DS4 does, but it's slightly older tech, and it also has a slightly worse ride if you go for some of the sportier options. It does have a larger body, but I don't actually think that's an advantage to this car. It just means it's got more competition, where the interior of the competition has actually caught up to the DS7 level. overall, I think the DS3 would probably be something like a 4.5 out of 10, but the DS7 would be a more of a 3 out of 10, while I think the DS4 is really good, and I'd give that more of a 7 out of 10. By far my favourite model in the DS lineup though has to be the DS9. I'm just so glad that the good old-fashioned saloon is still alive, but that's not to say the technology on board is old, because you'll find out later in this sort of mini review. The interior is far more Louis Vuitton than executive car. The DS really has gone one step further with this interior. I don't even know where to start, so I'm just going to show you a picture which will come up on the screen right now and let you take your own look at it. I'm told the seats are deliciously comfortable, while the steering wheel is like silken to the touch. But I wouldn't be surprised that the materials in this car are similar level to what they use in a Rolls Royce actually. The rear seats are also supremely spacious, even with headroom slightly tight, but we can gloss over that. The seats even massage you and cool you, and I really do think that it's horrible to suggest this car is in the same class as an Audi A6. I think it's far better, definitely more towards the Audi A8 end. This is also an incredibly quiet cruiser, especially if you go for the plug-in hybrid, which is the one I'd recommend. I'd recommend the plug-in hybrid 360, which is the most powerful engine, which produces 355 horsepower. And I'm also pleased to report that body control in the DS9 is very good. The ride comfort is also good, so it has done a really good handling slash comfort match. I think the low down batteries do help with this, because otherwise it's quite a heavy car. I think that even more so with this DS9 and other DS3 cars, you should go for a higher spec one in the Opera trim, for example, because it simply won't disappoint. It's far better when it comes to equipment to the German competitors, and I'm just glad they have made a good car here. They could have just done it simple and just used parts derived from other DS products like the DS7, but they haven't. They've just gone one step above, and I'm glad of that. So thank you for watching. I hope you understood a bit about DS and whether their lineup is any good or not. I think DS does have a future if they get into the electric powertrain stuff soon on. The DS3 E10 is electric, but the range is pretty hopeless, so I'm hoping they'll be able to get some better batteries, bigger batteries and longer ranges on these things. Anyway, thanks for watching, and see you in the next upload.